What's up, guys? This is Messenger of the Cross at Pulse Point Media. I was thinking today just about my family just growing up. And I was thinking about how my dad was, a really hard worker. He had the, American dream, so to speak, before him, where, of course, things were a lot different. They could get a house on one income and, take care of a whole family on one income. And, lending was great. And it was the boom. And they had it so easy, and they didn't realize how easy they had it. But they passed along the garbage and the debt to the next generation. And we get to have none of those opportunities, have everything taken. And then basically, they even let us know that, you shall have nothing and be happy, and you're going to eat bugs and you are slaves. You are a wage slave. And it's time to sober up and realize, and I don't just mean from alcohol or from drugs, I'm talking about just in general, to have a sober disposition and mentality over what we see happening today. And what we see happening today in America and worldwide is a complete technological dictatorship that is not concerned with the common average everyday citizen, except for to surveil and control and dominate in, these 15-minute cities. They got you to accept all the smart appliances, and, you guys just thought, well, maybe that's it. That's as far as we've taken it, with technology. But the fact is that they developed the Internet of Bodies. And a lot of this was done in the late 80s, 90s, where they have synced our bodies up to the cloud into a network and are using EMF frequencies and waves in these broadcast platforms to be able to hijack and remote control and have that backdoor access to that node on that network. And you just so happen to be the node on the network that they use in this data exchange. And your brain, your nervous system, your senses, your body, your DNA, all of it on the molecular level has been mapped and is now subject to many systems and platforms of abuse and control in these silent weapon systems that can damage, anything from your inner eardrum with the LRAD cannon, the sound weapon that they use for crowd control, where they can, turn on this big active denial system and then fry your skin in the crowd, burn you, blow out your inner eardrum. These are all less than lethal weapons, even though they can turn up the power and kill you. They call them less than lethal because they're designed to torment and torture, and, really they can just justify it and say, oh, it's just crowd control. And you know how crowds get, and you know how protests get. And at the same time, the same people that are doing that on one side of the fence are also on the other side of the fence stirring the pot and stirring things up to have this fake conflict and opposition where, the corporations of the world and the governments of the world have shown us that they're in lockstep together, especially during that medical tyranny and, medical scare that they brought on us all in 2020. And, they just do these exercises in order to get the public participating in the stupidity. They want to see and test how far they can take something, and then they'll say things like, wear one mask, and then that's not good enough. You need to wear 2 masks. And when that's not good enough, you need to wear 3 masks. And maybe that will keep you safe, because we're just here to keep you safe. as they give you the most ridiculous, nonsensical measures to follow to see how low you will go and how much you will abandon your own thinking process. That is what the test is all about. What can we do to these people, and what will they not accept? What new low standard will these people not just get used to and conditioned to? And that's why I say it's like the frog in the pot. And whether you're talking about the economy, you're talking about, gang stalking, you're talking about any of these topics that all are kind of linked together when you think about it, because we're living in a national security state in which we are run by executive orders, and that is a dictatorship. And the emergency keeps being declared. Therefore, our rights continue to be suspended, even though they pretend in theater and in an act and a performance that everything is just fine, and that the United States wasn't sold out and wasn't bought out and restructured, when we can clearly show the bankruptcy of the United States, and we were declared insolvent, and the government at the time pledged you and me as collateral against that debt and the infrastructure of this country. Why do you think, foreign mega billionaires, millionaires are buying up so much land in the United States or other countries that are supposed to be, quote unquote, the United States enemy? You see, what they have tricked us into believing is that we are still living in this old world order where nations are opposed to one another and where we have all these wars and all these conflicts. But what's happened is that the nations together have agreed that the citizen is the enemy, and they are moving forward with their sustainability agenda. And you can go and look at that, and the language and the way they talk and how controlling they are and how psychopathic it is. And they smile and smirk and are convinced that they can take everything away from you, and that, it doesn't belong to you. And they are conditioning you to accept new, lower standards all the time. And that is what the danger is with the frog in the pot. It's that over time, you well know that these tactics of abuse and control and up, down, mine, yours, back, forth, yes is no, no is yes, back and forth, that kind of brainwashing dislodges you from taking action because you're too busy worshiping and following the quote-unquote so-called experts. And the experts are now deciding that it's okay to have a police state and to use community-based policing tactics and communist-style tactics in the United States on families, on soccer moms, on innocent people, by just labeling them and profiling them, and then just doing all these so-called assessments and then validating the abuse and justifying it when they set the standard about who is the danger. You know what I mean? They're the ones setting and changing and altering the definitions of words and the definitions of what it means to, be on a watch list, what it means to be labeled a terrorist. And before it was just, we need to go get these terrorists in the Middle East. That's how it started. And then the president at the time told us that they didn't like our freedoms, so we have to have the Patriot Act. And that's going to keep us safe and save lives. And the American people just bought it and just went along with it, not realizing that our country was suspended. And due to the bankruptcy never being paid back, a third-party corporate entity has come in to manage the bankruptcy and to consolidate the debt. Do you understand? To consolidate the debt. And just because you and I didn't contribute to that debt doesn't mean that they're not holding us as collateral against that debt that was borrowed. And you see, that's just the first layer of the types of problems that we're facing as people, and the types of social problems that are created by the hostility that is injected into society when they seek to radicalize society. And that is what they do as they slowly let down the economy and crash the economy. They are there radicalizing, torturing and tormenting and destabilizing and pushing for people to become more radical. And it's all done in the name of keeping you safe. It's all done hiding behind that language. We're here to keep you safe and save lives. And that just means give us all your rights. We want total control, and we will decide what is good for you and what is not good for you. And we saw that with the health scare. But I would say we are currently living in a worldwide medical tyranny. And if they did it once, they're just going to probably do it again. Because if it worked once, they feel, we tell you what we're going to do to you. And before we do it, we let you know. And then we do it. And there is no resistance and nobody says a word. And they just start, stopping people from going and getting surgeries. People lost their jobs. You couldn't go visit your loved one in the hospital who is dying. They wouldn't let you see your loved one. And, many people had their loved ones die in elderly care and in the hospitals. You know what I mean? So, and they just kept saying, 2 weeks to flatten the curve, right? And people put up with it. People listened. People went along with it as they used the medical crisis as an excuse to let down the economy even more. And, America's never been the same since 2020. All the mom and pop shops, all the nice little places that make a city nice and make it enjoyable, well, that's pretty much eliminated. And, your mom and pop store was told you can't be open, whether you're a gym or a restaurant, you can't be open, but, these big companies next door to you can be. So it's all this selective, like dog training and selective, targeting, so to speak, over the whole population to get people to, submit and go along with madness. And it's all done in the name of keeping you safe and saving lives and for the greater good. That is the bottom line. They will always say, just take it on the head, have a little bit of courage and suffer, because if you suffer now, it's going to produce this later good result, this later greater good. And that's what they tell our perps as well, that are targeting us and harassing us and following us and damaging our property and trying to consume our relationships, whether it's work or money, creating crisis after crisis in our lives to try to get a breakdown, to try to get damage to happen. And people don't really understand. You don't have to take much physical action in today's age where everything's linked up and synced up in the digital world, and people can access not only your digital information, but body data and brain data. Do you understand? So it's on a whole other level of the Internet of Things. It's on a whole other level. It's not even close. It is way beyond that. Signals are being directed at the brain and the body of the target and of all of us. And, it's these nations that are coordinated and organized together in a new world order, and they show us that. They show us that by Project Lockstep, by those types of things. Just look it up. Project Lockstep, and how all the world was on the same program, following the same policy. Countries that were enemies with each other suddenly are all doing the same thing. How can you get that coordination and organization if these countries aren't agreed together? And of course we have the Antarctica Treaty, where again we see all the nations that are supposedly enemies all together in agreement and, securing Antarctica. You know what I'm saying? So, and just all the nations of the world can agree to do that. But yet there's all these wars and all these troubles between nation states when the New World War is a war against the citizen. Do you understand? It's a war on our humanity. It's a war to make us transhuman, to make us other than human. It is a technological medical dictatorship that is imposing itself on all of us worldwide, and it doesn't care what color you are. It doesn't care about identity politics. It doesn't care about any of that. It cares about destroying the goodness. It is evil versus good, literally. This darkness that we see in relatives, family, and friends, the envy, the jealousy, the competition, the comparing, the competing, the desire to sacrifice what's ours, the desire to step on us, lower us, hinder us, block us, stop us, get in our way. And I can't tell you how many times I've had to tell family members, get out of my way. Why are you positioning yourself between me and the vitals that I need to survive? And they're not even yours. You're just blocking me from taking care of myself. Why would you do that? Why would you stop and prevent and get in the way of the very tools and items I need to survive? And if you're doing that as a family member, like my family has, you are evil, you are wicked, and you need Jesus. I mean, that's what I'm going to say, because it's so dark to have those that were supposed to love you, that were supposed to be by your side no matter what. We're told all these idealistic things growing up. You know what I mean? We think that blood is thicker than water, but the fact is we've been shown otherwise. And some of my family members were the worst perps and persecutors, thinking they knew me and just assuming, never testing reality, never being able to examine anything and look into something, but wanting to believe the negative, wanting to believe the lies, the slander, pushing the lies and the slander, helping to get me homeless, helping to get me unhealthy, helping to get me damaged and ruined, so that, these narcissists can just stick their flag of victory in and just shout from the rooftops and howl like the beasts that they are, and howl over us in this short-lived, temporary, this addiction that they have, where they obsess over us and make us the fuel to fuel that addiction. They have singled us out, set us up to only use us to fuel their fantasies. And their fantasy, like I said, is greater than less than. I win, you lose. I'm superior to you. You're less than me. I'm in control. And, it's that need to demonstrate it. Some people just might think that, and that's as far as they go, but not our persecutors, not the people that are going after us. These people will stop at nothing, and each adjustment you make away from the abuse to try to survive will be met with a collapse game. And when you try to maneuver and get out of the damage and hostility and the harassment of having mobs of people coordinated and organized damaging you, you will then maybe understand what we've been trying to say. You think I want to get on here and really talk on YouTube about, my life and the things that have been done to me and the things that have been really done to all of us? I mean, it's not a fun topic. It's not something that I'm interested in, in terms of, this is a great topic. I really want to talk about this. It's very interesting. No, this is my life. This is my experience. This is what I've been put through. This is what kind of family I had. This is what kind of friendships I had. And from the time that I was very young, I was put in the middle again and again and again and fed off of. And I didn't have loving people around me who were compassionate and caring and saw my pain or damage or, saw the abuse that was done and was like, I really love you, John, and I really want to see you do well. And, it's wrong that, your dad did this to you, or, it's wrong that your friends did this to you. And I really want to be there for you and support you. I believe in you. And I love you no matter what. And we're going to get through this together. That's like a real person, a real parent. But mine wasn't like that at all. Mine was cold and had no remorse, no empathy, no sympathy, and could lie pathologically without ever even batting an eye, without ever losing any sleep. And as a matter of fact, the types I'm talking about, they can't go to sleep unless they cause howling pain in their victims. They can't feel alive unless they're sacrificing you to make sure that you're in a condition of constant misery and pain and brokenness. And it's never good enough. It's never good enough for these narcissist psychopaths. All they do all day long is think about us and obsess over us. And they saw that they couldn't hijack and take what makes us us. That's what we showed them. That's what we taught them. They played a game of checkers, and we recognized it and started playing a game of chess. And we just immediately got our enemies in checkmate by the grace of God. Many of us have our enemies, even on film, doing the very abuse to their own property and damaging things, and so that they could use that as leverage and evidence to support a victim performance, to support a victim act, which they only know how to do unless they're grandstanding as a hero and a savior. It's like these three things, like a ping pong ball. They just bounce back and forth between these three things. And that seems to be their only identity, is I'm a victim, poor me, feel sorry for me, and always at the times that they should be taking responsibility and being accountable for the damage they're doing. It's not time to feel sorry for you. That is misplaced. You should be owning and claiming, the actions and the behavior that cause damage, that are toxic and ruinous, and clearly a child would understand what to do and what not to do, but the narcissist doesn't. They are delusional. They are disassociative. And to the degree where I would say, like I've said before, that there's nobody there. There's nobody home, and what you think you know of your family and friends and relatives is just an act. It's just a performance. It's just a role that they step into, and they know how to perform. They know how to bring forth the appearance of something. But when you examine it and you look deeper into it, there is no substance. There is nothing there of value. It is just emptiness, a void, and complete total darkness and blackness. And this is why the conscience that they might have had has gone away. It is completely void and gone and has disappeared. And that is the bottom line, guys. They do not have what we have in us. They do not feel bad or feel remorse or sympathy or empathy for the wrong that they've done, like we do. See, the difference between us as real targeted individuals and maybe empaths, sensitive people that are sensitive to the spirit, people that, are awake and aware of their surroundings. If you're in your body, in other words, if you're connected to yourself, if you weren't afraid to look at yourself in its totality, not just the good about you like these narcissists try to do, but where you look at the bigger picture and you look at your shadow and you incorporate that and you look at that and you handle that and you deal with that and you face that and you correct that, you fix that, you change that. But see, the narcissists never will change. These perpetrators and those who participate in community-based policing and targeting and gang stalking are all too familiar with triangulation. I mean, they are experts at manipulating third parties to get those people to do their dirty work. And all I'm saying is that in my life, it's usually been the victim performance on their part that has really been the bedrock of their manipulation. Going to third parties and pretending to be a victim of me, making up lies and stories and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing until there's a reaction, and not stopping until there is a reaction, and never getting, a way out. Always being cornered in. And when you go to adjust to try to do healthy things when someone's coming at you in a toxic way, they just seize control of that healthy thing and then destroy it and ruin it and force the type of interaction that they alone want. And they're obsessed. They're obsessed. They won't let any outside influence in. They won't let us speak to them and warn them and tell them God is not happy with you. You cannot persecute, lie, cheat, steal, and do all these works in the dark and think that there is some special favoritism. There is no, respect of persons with God. Whether you choose or refuse, it doesn't really matter. Your nature is wicked. Your nature, at the core of who you are, needs to be fixed. It is broken. It is ruined. When you can't feel bad for the damage and harm and ruin that you cause, when you no longer can feel guilt or shame, but you feel guilt and shame when you're caught. You feel guilt and shame when you can't get away with it. You see, it's this misplaced emotion. At the time you should be feeling guilty and restrained in doing harm to your loved ones, you're out there pushing for a bigger breakdown, a bigger collapse, and never learn, and have to drag others into the misery and the pain that you yourself have within you. But all you can do is project that pain onto me and others, and never look at yourself like I did in my life. Just always making excuses, always justifying, always rationalizing, always minimizing, never having any real conversation. Just talk about the weather. Talk about your favorite sport team and how they won last week. But never talk about the hidden, coordinated, and organized abuse and manipulation. Like, you're a matriarch really with a harem. And these enablers are used as weapons against us as victims of these psychopathic manipulators. They do not ever feel remorse, and they will never stop. And they try to get you to force stop them. Do you understand? They try to force you into a position to be forced to even take physical action. That's what they love the most. When they can get you reacting in a negative way, they immediately feel that they are superior and powerful and that their job was done. And they go from one fix to the next, setting up, building up a breakdown. The higher they take you, the worse the crash is. That is what they do. And it's, like I said, yes, no, mine, yours, back, forth, up, down, around and around, to dislodge you from your own identity and person and being a conscious, aware, alert person with spiritual understanding. They want to dumb that down. They want to dislodge you from what makes you you. And they want it for themselves. And they feel that you're their possession, that they can take it because you belong to me. You know what I mean? Many of us have family members that feel this way about us. that we are their possession, that we are their appliance. And when we don't give them the reaction that they want, well, then they have temper tantrums and stomp their feet and slander and lie and try to get a breakdown in other areas of our life, and will not ever stop their animosity and their hostility and hatred and immaturity. And really, they're so immature that they're like 3-year-olds. Literally, they never developed emotionally. It's the saddest thing I've ever seen, to go away and to meet Christ and to know God. And, you know, the one that was the least likely in my family to have an experience that transformed my whole life. And then to have family members that want to cover that up, that want to suppress that, that don't want that to be true. And there's nothing I can do about it. It is the facts of reality. God came in my life. He rearranged me. And he put me in a proper order. And that is what he did. And I love him for it. And I'll always love him for it. Because it's those times when you're alone and when there's nobody coming to save you and you're perplexed. You know, there's conflicts without and fears within. And your soul has no rest. Your soul has no rest. Groaning all the time. Groaning in yourself. Just groaning in pain and in misery and in agony. You know, where the pain is so great that all you can do is roll out of your bed and fall on your face and cry like your stomach is coming out of your throat. Like crying that hard in total brokenness, in total ruin, where you realize, Lord, I'm undone. I'm a man of unclean lips, and I live amongst a people of unclean lips, and my eyes, the eyes of my heart have seen the King, the Lord Almighty. And it is coming into his presence that has humbled me so much, because I realize that I'm nothing without him, that I can do nothing apart from him, and that it's by him, through him, with him, and unto him. And that is the way I am orientated. I have a new point of reference, in other words, that is Christ. And I don't have to refer to my past or my history or my condition or the environment that I'm in, because he already has made a provision and already answered. Do you understand what I'm saying? There is this availability in the riches of who he is and his person, and this comes to us in the form of a supplied life. And it is supplied moment to moment. The more we turn, the more we engage, the more he can impart himself and live his own life through us, in us, and for us. So many people say, what would Jesus do? You know, we saw those wristbands for years. What would Jesus do? And it's really kind of misleading, because it's not what would he do. It is, what is he doing right now? And he is alive, in other words. And the only way you will really know that he's alive is when you are surrounded by these perps and they take action to try to eliminate you from this earth, to try to get rid of your life in a quiet, accidental way. When that accident and those accidents keep happening over and over and over, and time and again, God steps in and miraculously delivers you and puts your enemies who are chasing and hunting you to shame. You know, that is what my God does. That is what he's done for me. And it is a daily walk. It is not something that I just have this like one-time prayer and then everything is good. That's not the way it is. It is a relationship where every day I'm engaging. Every day I'm making that transfer from my own resources and myself to the bountiful riches of Christ, in which he can impart to me all that I need and does and has. And so we don't even look like what we should look like for going through what we've been through as people. God has been special to us in, you know, displaying this power over us to really preserve our youth, to preserve our health, even though we've had to suffer many afflictions and many hardships physically and in our health. God has been there every step of the way, just saying, draw from me. Take more of what I am. That is the whole point. Go deeper in taking me in deeper. I want to be all in all to you. I want to fill all for you. And that is what God is doing to me, is that he is aligning me and setting me up to fill me. And that is what this all is. It's just an escort. That's all it is, to experience resurrection life. And I do mean resurrection life. And the only way you know that Christ has been raised from the dead is when you also are put to the test, and where men try to take your life, just like has been done with me and many other targeted individuals. You know, whether it was poisoning you, whether it was, allowing and insisting and coordinating and having the medical system injure you. You know, it's the level of this control it's really found in every area of society. It is a system. It is a control grid, a kill grid. And when you get on the wrong side of it, you will realize very quickly what I have been saying, and you will remember my words. You will remember that people were warning you about torture happening in the United States legally, and it has been passed. It is NDAA, and anybody can go look that up, where they authorize the torture and profile policing and authorize the torture of American citizens with no due process. That is what NDAA is all about. And people can spin it, people can say whatever they want afterwards, but anybody can go read the document and take a look at it. And it's not just that. I can point to many laws that have been passed. I can show much evidence and proof of military contractors and the military and many different branches of the government being investors and receivers of this kind of weapon system platforms that are silent weapon systems that are used. And whether it's crowd control, whether it's getting somebody to do something by torturing them, you know what I mean? How many have gone before us that have been tortured and tortured and tortured and came out and said, I'm being tortured? And, you know, the majority of people just laugh and chuckle and write it off and say, that guy's crazy, he's mentally ill. How many people does it have to take where you see, you know, these phenomenons happen in our society, you know, where people are doing stupid things. And a lot of it is just scripted, and a lot of it is just to create a chilling effect and is propaganda and stuff. But I'm talking about, you know, just how systematic and controlled it is when you have a government going about to radicalize the citizens and the population and create that through crisis management and breakdown and collapse. And along the way down, they create more and more hostility so that they can have an excuse to even impose more control. And I just hit this from all angles, guys. I'm talking about the type, the nature, the type of person that is a perp that does this kind of stuff. I'm talking about family members that we thought we knew, we didn't know them. We believed a false version. We thought we knew them and what they displayed to us, but it wasn't real. It was just an act. It was just a performance. And we've lost many things. We've lost loved ones. We've lost relatives. We've lost friendships. We've lost jobs. We've lost cars. We've lost intimacy. We've lost connection. We've lost human association, the way that it used to be before we were targeted individuals. We do not have the ability to freely associate with anyone because we're being hijacked and kept in an electronic prison camp and tortured and harassed and kept away from anyone that would naturally want to be around us or be our friend or love us. I mean, For God's sake, guys, they turn your own mother against you. They turn children against you. They turn elderly people against you. The ability that they have is to create an army by the flick of a switch, and faster than light speed, you will see everyone around you moving in a coordinated, organized, systematic way like an army, and moving together like a bunch of bees. And it will be, the first thing you'll think is, this is like a beehive. This is hive mind. Like, to watch a group of 20 people be so coordinated and organized and all be doing the same gesture, the same exact statement, the same exact thing. It defies the laws of probability. It's just statistically impossible to have a pattern repeat like that over and over. And you guys know that. You guys know that. So I just wanted to come to you and talk to you a little bit today about, you know, these narcissist psychopaths that we have in our lives that have obsessed and latched onto us and our energy, and they never wanted to let go. And no matter what it did to us, no matter what kind of destruction it caused our lives personally, and the loneliness, the isolation, you know, the health problems, you know, just being below the poverty line for so long, you know, having opportunities, not just denied naturally, but competed against, and then afterwards gaslit about it. Do you understand? It's like they show you, here we are, and we are going to compete against that resource that is benefiting you, and we are going to destroy it and remove it. And then it's going to put you into a panic and make you have to jump. And it's dog training. And what I've been doing is just not jumping. Do you understand what I'm saying? That if they're going to try to jerk your chain, cut the chain. You know what I mean? I'm fed up with it, guys, when it comes to people not wrapping their minds around the very seriousness of what we're seeing in society and the danger that it poses for all of us, where you cannot address grievances, and where, you know, your family, your friends, your neighborhood becomes the battlefield. Okay? And that is what it is. When you can't walk to your car because there's this hostility and conflict and this coordinated intercept run on you, and you can't even make it to your car without a guy in a red shirt crossing your path and bumping into you, you know. And, you know, you get sick of it, and you're like, you come out of your house, you see the guy with the red shirt coming out of his house at the same time, because it happens hundreds of times, and then you're just like, I'm going to go back inside really quick and wait. And you go back in and wait. They go back in and wait. And then you go out to do what you were going to do, and suddenly they just come out at the same time as you. Like I said, I can go to the garbage, and I'll be followed to the garbage. I can go wash my car, I'll be followed to go wash my car. I can walk to the other side of the neighborhood, and I'm followed when I go to the other side of the neighborhood. And this is just a small part of the surveillance, overt harassment tactics that are used, where the surveillance itself becomes a gaslighting weapon. That is what I'm referring to. And our family and friends went along with it, partnered with our enemies, and told themselves lies about us that we deserve this, as they just live up their lives, live it up, enjoy themselves and entertain themselves to death, and eat themselves to death, basically in total greed and gluttony, as they look at our lives when we had nothing and couldn't even accept that. They couldn't accept even when we had nothing. They brought us to nothing and did everything they could to bring us to nothing, and then turned around and said, look at you. Look what's wrong with you. Why are you so mentally ill? Why can't you get it together? It's like literally they took a baseball bat and they smashed our knees and our legs, and we fell to the ground naturally, And they're standing over us and saying, why did you just fall to the ground? What's wrong with you? Why can't you just get up? I don't see anything wrong with you. Your legs are fine. Your legs are just fine. Get up and do something. Make something out of your life. Because, I'm sick of saving you. I'm sick of always having to deal with your problems. And at the same time, they're the ones hiding the abuse that they're doing and creating the collapse and the control in their insecurity. They're so insecure that they can't let you be in a position of ascendancy for any time at all. You can't be getting better. And if it's better than them, that's when they really stop it. If you're looking better, feeling better, having better, it's not real support. It is just these psychopaths giving gifts and pretending like that makes up for the damage that they've caused, and then just turning around and grandstanding about those gifts to third parties as if they're a hero and a savior, and they complain and whine and play the victim of you. And meanwhile, they're not telling other people the competition game that exists over those resources. They play both sides of the fence in a fervent way. And here they are damaging, destroying, harming, ruining any information they find out. They bring about a breakdown. That is what they do. It is a passive-aggressive, hostile game of deadly control and abuse. And it is a game that it is for your life. And I can't tell you how many years I've spent, 25 years that I know of, that I'm aware of, where I have been followed, harassed, stalked, damage to property, damage to employment, damage to the process of development, hijacked, where those very items that I created were then stolen in a dance. 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. And each move I make was countered and is countered. This is part of the stalking, where they can maintain the control, and it takes energy, time, and money to move forward. And as soon as that item is in place that supports you, they move to be destructive of it in many different ways. And it is this dynamic that I'm talking about, where they force you to interact with them because they are destroying everything. And you just have to sit there and accept that there's nothing you can do about these people breaking and destroying the attachment that you have to the things you love and value in life. It is this sense that they try to produce in a targeted individual of desperation all the time. And we don't have to feel that way. We don't have to be that way even if we're being tortured physically. We have the spirit of Jesus in us. And look at how he was tortured, and how, he bore our infirmities and carried our sorrows, and was wounded for our transgressions, was wounded for us. I mean, the love and the commitment that I see in Christ is unlike anything I've ever seen anywhere else. And one glimpse of his personal love to me, it shattered all my doubt and denial and all my resistance and all my hostility to walking with Christ. And it's just revelation. It's just the eyes of your heart being enlightened so that you might know the hope of the calling and know him who's called you. He has to really unveil himself and display himself and show himself in your life. And many people, they have these expectations and they're looking to have their expectations satisfied. And that might be in itself something that's driving you away from seeing what God wants to show you. We have our resolves. We have our rights to ourself. And it is this, on the deepest level, that I believe God is after. The more control he can get of you, and the more he can fill you with his own life, the harder it is for the enemy to have any place in you, to have anywhere to grab onto. You see what I'm saying? Because the prince of this world comes and he has nothing in me, Jesus said. I think that's a quote, you can go look it up. It's like in the scriptures. But the prince of this world, referring to Satan, the prince of this world comes and he has nothing in me. There's nothing to grab a hold of. There's nothing. As for me and my house, we shall serve the Lord. There's nothing in me that, and nothing in you that we're not giving them the benefit by reacting, by giving them what they want. It is an endurance race. It is a patience race. It is something where you have to have supernatural patience, supernatural contentment, because the object of your joy and love is Christ and not something, not some circumstance, not things going good for you. It's not just about things going good for you. If that's your only pursuit, then, you're really missing the deeper picture of what, all this is about and how God can get involved in your life and in your circumstances and in the battle that we find ourselves in. He can fight against those that fight against you. And it's his to avenge and he'll repay. And knowing the terror of the Lord, we persuade men. And he can lead us into all truth and guide us into all truth and bring to our remembrance all the things that he's spoken to us, because he's doing the living in us. And we have allowed it. We have opened up and allowed him to have space to move, to flow, and to be who he is. And he is the one that our enemies see, I believe. As time goes on, this whole creation is groaning and looking for the manifestation of the sons of God. There is an unveiling, there is a revealing. And just like Moses, who came down the mountain and his face was shining. And it's really like the same with us. If we're looking at Christ and we're beholding Christ and interacting with Christ and enjoying him in the face and in spite of all the things happening, we come away shining. And that is what the enemy hates. It is this image. It is this image that starts to take shape in us. And it is the light of God. It is the shape of Jesus Christ. It is his person, his disposition, his attitude, his choices, his thinking. It is this union. We are joined one spirit to the Lord, and he has become the very life of our life. He is the faith of our faith. He is the life of our life. And, our life is hidden with Christ in God, in other words. And when Christ, who is our life, appears, we too will appear with him in glory. And that's what I'm seeing, and that's what my enemies are seeing. And I just wanted to relay that to you guys. I don't mean to go on and on. I just wanted to say, guys, be encouraged. We're all in this fight. It is very difficult and very hard. And many of us are alone and tired and weary and worn out. And we feel like, if it wasn't for God giving us a little bit of energy for the day, we couldn't even get out of bed. We know, for real targeted individuals, that everything you do is interrupted. Every single thing you try to do is met with people trying to interrupt and stop and block and get in the way and prevent and stagnate and hold on to you, to try to sink you, suffocate you, dogpile you, and keep you from moving forward. And they don't like when you can support yourself. They really get mad when you outmaneuver them by the grace of God. And then you also get the need met that you were trying to meet. All of us have needs, basic human common needs that we have, like food, shelter, relationships. And this is what the new war is about. It's about injecting themselves in the middle of that with an asymmetrical style war of attrition. Just look it up. Look up the words war of attrition and look up what that means. A war of attrition. It is asymmetrical. It is coordinated and organized. It is hostile to innocence. It is damaging innocence. And I can't get people to just listen just a little bit and realize that we're all really in trouble if we don't start having a conversation about what these things are and about what's going on in this ever-changing, ever-shifting reality. You know, this reality is constantly changing and constantly shifting and moving. And, you know, many people just get stuck on one thing or another. But it is this ability that God has given us to be able to see the bigger picture and to see how all these things connect, you know, and they do connect. They definitely connect. It is very spiritual. It is very spiritual. It is technological. It is physical. You know, we are attacked in our bodies all day long. But all I'm saying is that when you attack a child of God and you break open the outer shell of that person, and that person's outer man, their outer shell breaks open, and it's only so that the germ of life could come forth. Do you think that Satan and his minions would have crucified Christ if they knew who he was? If it was unveiled who he was when he went to the cross? Of course they wouldn't have killed him. They would have stopped it. They would have realized what's going on. But it's in this hidden way, I believe, of the cross that God can supply all that he is in resurrection, life, and power to us to overcome. And it is moment to moment, and it is life out of these death type of situations. And we get to experience a whole other life. And it is powerful. It is amazing. I mean, it is when you discover that you're not limited in your resources, even when you possess nothing, you own everything. Even though you aren't in possession of the very thing that you want or the thing that you need, it's already a done deal. It's already there waiting. And we're just aligning with so much that God has laid out for us. And God had to remove family and friends. He had to get rid of people that were our enemies, that were opposed to us and were taking action against us nonstop to try to make us depend on them, to take us on a ride, to set, you know, their emotional value at a certain in a certain way by doing these abusive things to us. They used us, sacrificed us, caused pain in our lives to drive the fantasy that they're superior and powerful and in control. And they did it at any expense. It didn't matter how much time it stole from us. And we are realizing together just how damaging it is to have a covert, malignant, psychopathic narcissist and someone orchestrating and coordinating third-party proxy abuse, where third parties are involved and engaged, doing the bidding of the one with the hate and blinding others and getting like 20 against 1 is a form of witchcraft, to convince other people without questioning. And to be able to get away with that, you have to act pretty desperate and convincing and pretend to be a victim of the one who's exposing the truth, of the one who is exposing the lies, the manipulation, the hidden abuse, the hiding of the abuse, the insecurity that's dark and deep and will, be used to sacrifice everything and anything to fill that black hole. And instead, I'm pointing the way to say, heal that, fix that, correct that. And the narcissist psychopath laughs and chuckles and thinks it's cute and funny to actually take advice from me or hear counsel from me. And even when that counsel is good for the person, you guys well know that they just will laugh about it. They will mock all the way to the grave. They are very self-harming, very self-mutilating people that are so insecure that they will hurt themselves and hurt you just to get attention. Literally, everything they live for is a bad reaction to get that kind of attention. Everything they do. There isn't one thing that they do in their actions that isn't revolving around getting a breakdown. And that's why there's so many things in the narcissist's life that are undone, that are broken, that never get fixed. They're just broken laying there. And they never get used for their proper purpose or use. They just get offered up and sacrificed to the narcissist's ego because they look at somebody else using the same tool or something in the yard and they huff and puff and get angry. Why can't I do it that way? And then they just go break the item that they bought in anger and having a temper tantrum because they can't do anything right or do anything good. And they're always comparing and competing and comparing and competing only. That's all they're doing. Compare, compete, compare, compete. That's the only one-track mind that they have. They get threatened by goodness. They get threatened by achievement and accomplishment. And they look at you and they say, you don't deserve that. Even though you've worked for it, you don't deserve that. I deserve that. When they do nothing to deserve it or nothing to work on themselves, they just have this possessive, childlike temper tantrum. I'm taking what belongs to me, they think, and you don't matter. Get out of the way. Let me have your life. Let me have what makes you you. And let me copy you, mimic you, mirror you, and let me be you to others. Because I hate being me. That's the way the narcissist is. They don't have an identity. So they shift from one identity to the next to the next. And they're always shifting. And I'm not dogmatic about, classifying narcissists, psychopaths, whatever. I'm just saying that they all overlap. And when you have family members that are in such competition with you and they express envy and jealousy in clear ways to you and then begin to start eliminating your relationships, eliminating your resources to force dependency to gain control, you will understand what I'm saying. And you will just realize that even, yes, your loved ones, they don't love you and they do not care about you. And that is why they left you for dead, because they do not care what happens to you. And that is one of the biggest shocks of my life, is realizing that my own mother participated in this abuse on every level, from the damage to property, to the stalking, to the harassment, to the isolation, to the damage to my employment, the aggressiveness that has existed in the background without my awareness, and then being so persistent and so consistent, like a job. Finding out I have a job and a boss, and then calling that job and calling that company and calling that boss and saying I'm dangerous and you hire at your own risk, and all these different things that they say to plant seeds of doubt and confusion, to isolate and alienate you and separate you and keep you isolated and keep you from supporting yourself, so that they can say, see, I told you he was mentally ill and couldn't take care of anything. I've had to be the one that had to sacrifice so much for him. Look at all I've done. And really, it's just like, dude, you're hiding all this abuse and destruction and destructive nature and this hostility and anger, and you are literally playing both sides of the fence to such a disgusting degree, and then destroying things and being destructive and that angry and that offended when someone else gets the attention. That's what I'm saying, that they get that mad. If you are taking any attention at all, they will move to be destructive and collapse and control you. You are not allowed to smile. You are not allowed to laugh. You are not allowed to think on your own. You have to go through the gatekeeper. You have to go through the one that approves and authorizes everything, which is the covert, malignant narcissist in your life, and they just ingratiated themselves and injected themselves in your affairs in life without you knowing it. And they did that for a number of years to try to stagnate, stop, block, and frustrate and produce a result that was in line with their narrative and lies. And that did not work. And they did everything they could to try to bring that to pass, to get the bad reactions so they could say, see, and justify and excuse the slander, rather than saying, I've slandered you really bad for no reason. I'm really, really sorry. They don't want to do that. They always are maneuvering to try to hide their abuse and manipulate and come off looking as the one who's so noble and put together and in control. And they never want to admit and get square and be like, you know what? I was really jealous of you. Everything comes easy to you. And, I didn't mean to sacrifice a car or where you were living or, the ability you have to take care of yourself. I didn't mean to get in the way of that and compete with you over that resource and sacrifice it and watch the reaction of losing something that creates independence and autonomy for me and allows me to be my own person and make my own choices. And just always having that sacrificed. They find out what is supporting you, and then they go after those things that support you and will do whatever it takes to offer those things up on the altar of their ego. And all on the altar of their ego, you just remember that, because there is no cause or reason behind what they do beside stimulating and using you as that stimulus to energize their fantasy. And their fantasy is, I'm superior to you. And then they move against you at any cost, at any price, to make sure you know that. And that you're reminded about it all the time. And they do that through abuse. And they let you know. You don't get to breathe without me. That is what they want you to know. And it is highly destructive, highly abusive, psychologically, mentally, emotionally, physically, on every level, to have somebody decide for you who can be in your life and who can't be in your life, and decide for you what's good for you and what's not good for you, and decide for you when they want to just unplug you from everything in your life, and on the way down, feed off of that turmoil that they created and engineered, and then pretend like you did it to yourself and they're saving you in the end, to get away with doing it. So guys, I just wanted to bring this to you today. And I love you guys very much. And again, this is Pulse Point Media, Messenger of the Cross. We're out.